Okay, let me get on this. My question is related to an issue that will come up in an IEP meeting next week, and I don't know whether I missed it or not. So it is a bit time sensitive. I do apologize. Can you talk about the difference between a reading specialist and a reading coach? That the terms are interchangeable, but apparently these are two different positions in our state. Would either one be appropriate for working with a child with significant learning disability in special education who is unable to read? Now, with regards to interchangeable titles, yeah, the guys, um, I'm going to use this as an example, all right? Because this whole reading intervention thing, that's sort of the growing craze, and so there's new words being popped up and new titles being invented all the time. So we went through this a few years ago with behavior, okay, where and autism, to where that was the cool thing for a while. When I say cool thing, I mean I'm just saying that there tends to be cycles within special education of what we tend to see as parent attorneys, um, and what we see being dealt with inside of the education system. And so for a while there, it was trying to get ahead of the onslaught of autism related challenges, which is still a hell of a lot of the due process challenges. Um, so so you'd sit there and see these titles pop up: autism specialist, behavior specialist. Um, well, let's say those two, okay? And you sit there and go, what the hell's any of that mean? I don't know. I mean, these are sort of invented titles. And at that point, you sit there and you go, okay, well, what is the difference between, let's say, the district's behavior specialist or the district's autism specialist, and let's say a board certified behavior analyst or a licensed behavior analyst? And I tell you, when I would pose these questions, I would get a myriad of answers. And what would end up being, because, and also hear me out on this, I'm not one that necessarily bows down and prays at the altar of licensure. Okay, I don't, because I have had some of our daughter's best instructors have been paras, and what made them the best is they were receptive to the training being given to them. They had the right heart, they had the right mindset, they wanted to learn. And so, therefore, some of these people, I don't even know if they had degrees or not, but yet, because of the knowledge that they wanted to gain with regards to my daughter's individualized needs, they were some of the best that ever interacted with my child. And she made massive gains with them. Now, some of the issues that we've had over the years were with people with a lot of titles and acronyms behind their name. So attitude is 9/10, or, yeah, it just is. And, the desire to learn and the desire to be better. Um, I was just having this discussion earlier today with, Gina, the right hand inside the Galini group. Uh, and we were having that discussion about titles. And, my thing is great. But to sit there and say, well, make this assumption that this person is qualified or this person is an expert simply because they have a degree is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Because that isn't the standard. That shouldn't be the standard. That should be a foundational point. But then after that, what have you done for me lately is sort of the standard I want to see. I want to see action. I want to see where there's an acknowledgement that you don't know everything, that training is something that you'd be receptive to, that it's okay to acknowledge that every one of our children are individuals and that we need to approach them as individuals. And we need to acknowledge that through that approach and that analysis of their individualized needs, that you may not know what exactly needs to be done. And there needs to be some humility behind that in order for the team to work as it's supposed to work and pull from all of the various, expert hats that are there to sit there and troubleshoot the issue. But what I run into is I run into this arrogance issue on these teams to where everybody just sort of pretends like they're all experts and they know exactly how to help this child when in reality they don't have the first clue. And instead of just admitting that this is a complex child and we're all trying to figure it out, everybody pretends. And then everybody's spinning their wheels and no progress is being made. So let's fast forward. Reading interventionist, reading coach, reading specialist. I mean, do they have any kind of meaning? Well, I don't know. But see, the devil's in the details. You're an IEP team member, and so if you're sitting there, you need to sit there and say, and of course, you run the risk of these people getting offended by the question. And, people shouldn't get offended by you asking, what does this title mean? You have the title. How did you get the title? What does that title mean? What specific things did you have to do to get the title? Because, I mean, I've seen too many of these situations to where, they say, well, we have a reading specialist. But then you find out that, yeah, I mean, I see the word reading in there and I don't see anything special about that because a person, in fact, did not have a specialty and it was more of an ambiguous kind of, yeah, I have a master's degree. Yeah, so what? So you always need to sit there and get to the bottom of, yeah, you're a reading specialist in what area? You're a reading coach in what area? In what program? Because they may go, well, I'm a reading specialist and we use the Sunday system. SONDAY. Okay, that tends to be the new thing that schools are starting to buy. It comes in a box. There's no real supporting instruction that comes with it. There's no classes that you go through to become an expert in the Sunday system. Now, you sit there and you go, well, it's loosely based upon the principles of Orton Gillingham. Loosely based upon the principles of Orton Gillingham. So therefore, it's not Orton Gillingham at all. It's just loosely based upon it. It's like, if you remember back in the, well, I'm just going to say the 80s, you sit there and if you liked polo, you'll liked Palo, and it was the knockoff that sort of smelled like it. And I'll admit I probably wore it, Palo, and it was an alpaca with a guy on it. I don't know what animal it was. I just know that it was a knockoff. It wasn't real. So I'm just saying that some of these things that the specialist or the coach is using doesn't necessarily require any kind of competency or expertise in order for it to be a real true specialty. And then on that point, you have so many facets of where issues could be within a child's learning experience when it comes to reading. Phonemic awareness, fluency, comprehension, the connection between language and visualization, all of those things. And each one of these, you might have a child that's stuck in these areas, but okay over here in others. So where is that specialty? Where are we just sort of saying, well, I'm broad brushing and no. So you need to ask the questions in order to isolate what that specialty is in, because there's not necessarily going to become, have a license behind it. Not behind a lot of this stuff. And just having a teacher's license isn't good enough. There are so many reading products out there, guys. What you need to find out is you need to research the reading program. You need to ask the school, ask the IEP team, what reading program are we using for my child? And if they go, well, we use a scientifically based peer-reviewed reading program. Well, what the hell is it? Name it for me. because you got to name it. You got to know what it is. As a parent, you're an equal member of this IEP team. They can't sit there and keep you in the dark. Don't accept the fact that they use a peer-reviewed, scientifically based reading program. They all do. Every reading program is scientifically and peer-reviewed. But what you'll find is that many of these programs are loosely based upon other programs, or loosely based upon this program, which is based upon this program. And so therefore there's a lot of question marks with regards to the true effectiveness of these programs across the board for every child. And that's where the caution comes in with regards to a specialist as opposed to a coach, as opposed to a reading hero, as opposed to whatever. You can slap a moniker on anything, guys. It's your responsibility as a parent to ask the questions. And then don't sit there and take mumbo jumbo or a smokescreen as a legitimate answer. Many schools are told by board attorneys not to write the name of the specific reading program into your child's IEP. Now, is there a rule in the law that says you're not supposed to do that? No, absolutely not. But it doesn't mean that in your meeting minutes, on a cocktail napkin, on a freaking piece of toilet paper, which is now worth its weight in gold, they can't write that program down on a piece of paper. Put it on a sticky note, for God's sakes, if you need to. But at that point, this is where you would benefit from knowing what that reading program is so that you can do the necessary back work and researching what the manufacturer recommends on the use, frequency of intervention, the requirements for somebody that is teaching and instructing in this area. All of that stuff becomes very important. Because let's say, for example, an actual Orton Gillingham reading program, they typically will require that in order for it to be truly a peer-reviewed based Orton Gillingham program, that they recommend the intervention be like 55 minutes a day for 5 days a week. That is what the research of the reading program has determined gets the results that were in the peer-reviewed and scientifically based results. So you got to sort of follow the instructions is what I'm saying. Just because it's a reading program that somebody says, well, it's peer-reviewed and scientifically based, if you're not following the instructions on its use, then it's not peer-reviewed and scientifically based. So there's so many schools that they'll sit there and say, well, we're using Orton Gillingham. Okay. But I see that you're only using it 30 minutes a day, 2 times a week in a small group setting. And that isn't what the instructions for Orton Gillingham on its recommended frequency is. And then who is teaching this? Oh, the SPED teacher. So who's the Grand Poopah Orton Gillingham fellow what's the rigorous training that this teacher went through in order to be competent in the delivery of an Orton Gillingham program? Because it's quite rigorous. And what you'll find is that they don't. So that's where the devil is in the detail of asking the necessary questions of what's the peer-reviewed scientifically based reading program that you're using for my child? How did you come to determine that this is the effective program for my child's specific learning style? And then what makes the teacher or the reading specialist or the coach competent in the delivery of the program? And therefore, you need to get the name so that you can do the necessary Google searches. And people always trash Google. Guys, I can read any medical journal in the world on freaking Google. So I get tired of hearing this arrogance out of the medical field, out of the scientific community, out of educators that are like, ooh, did you get it on the University of Google? Guys, everything in the world that I want to see that gives you guys all of the little knowledge, and it's the same thing for me. I am not so arrogant as to not completely understand that every constitutional law book, every contracts book, every negotiable instruments book, that everything that I had to sit there and read and understand, including old bar exam tests, they're all in the public domain. They're all out there. All of the case law, everything that I rely upon to do my job is out there on Dr. Google. So don't sit there and knock it, because it is the source of every information, everything that you need to be and know and understand, as long as you're looking in the right places. And if those are official channels and you see that it's backed by science and not some meme. And guys, I am a meme fanatic, on my personal Facebook page. I am. I enjoy it. I am an open book. And so what I'm saying is that, but I do my necessary research before I go popping off. Okay. I just wanted to throw that in, that you need to sit there and Google search the specifics of these programs and what the qualification requirements would be to be competent in the delivery of these programs and what the recommended frequency is, those kind of things. That way you understand what these terms are. Otherwise, they'll just sort of tell you what those terms mean for them, and they expect you to go, oh, okay. Guys, trust but verify. Don't be mean about it, but don't take people moving this. How many, I mean, come on. People lie incessantly. White lies, legit lies. There's always a motive behind people, why people skew the truth, bend it, mislead, manipulate. And it's your job to sit there and just sort of understand that humans are going to do stuff like that. And so therefore you just sort of need to take it for what it is and then do necessary research to back up what you're being told. Okay? That's a smart advocate.